Well, the lighthouse, I think, is a place where people can come. Of course, obviously, females can come and be able to transition themselves into the community. As the chaplain of one of the largest women's prisons in the world for about 12 years and now supervising the chaplaincy and the rehabilitative programs there at Valley State Prison for Women, I can see that many of the women, when they're getting ready to leave the institution, one of the greatest fears that they encounter is, where am I going to go and what am I going to do? How am I going to go back into society? Many of them have come to grips with what they're going through in prison and dealing with their addictions and their abuse, and oftentimes many of them, the majority of them, are mothers. And so they want to reconcile back with their children as well. But in coming into a community, not really being ready, it's like a shotgun waiting for them to come out and for them to get blasted with a culture and environment that they're really not accustomed to in dealing with the struggles, of their everyday life. So I think the lighthouse provides a place where they can come in, and even though it's not a controlled environment per se like a prison, they're able to learn spiritual principles, and they're able to transition back into the community as well. And not only that, but also with their children. Well, when you look at the children, especially of incarcerated inmates and females, what we're looking at, about 70% of them are most likely going to end up in prison themselves, according to statistics. We're looking at the majority of the women in prison. Now, I'm talking about in prison are mothers. And the lighthouse, when they come out, or even if they're in the community, I mean, I'm not just talking about the prison setting, but the prison, even in the outside of their addictions and the things that they're going through, the lighthouse is a place where they can find a safe environment on a voluntary basis, where they can come in, and it's structured in the sense where they can learn about the principles of living and the principles based upon their own struggles that they're dealing with. And I think the majority of a common denominator among a lot of the women is suffering from a poor self-esteem, a poor self-image. And I think the lighthouse is a place where they're not just able to stay and have shelter, but a place to learn how to deal not with just the symptoms, but the cause. Not just the addiction, but the reasons for that and what leads them to that. And so they have Bible studies, they have classes, they have these kinds of studies that will pertain to helping them out, in their poor self-esteem, so that they're able to grasp how they're able to see themselves in a positive way. And so the lighthouse, I think, is a very important part of that, where they can come and do that. Now let me just say the lighthouse is not for everybody. And I say not for everybody in the sense that if that person does not want to change, if that person does not want to submit to a program that looks at these values and principles of what it stands for, where they can grow and learn, then obviously the person is not ready to make changes. This is not just a crash pad where they come in and crash out just because they don't have a place to stay. But it's more than that. It's a place where if you really want to change, if you really want to make the positive changes and you're really serious about it, then the lighthouse is a place where they can come, where the tools will be provided for them. But it's up to them to take those tools and begin to utilize those tools. Because as we know, we can't change people. People can change themselves, but as long as they are given the tools, and the tools, of course, both in their spirituality and the principles about growing in their own individual lives, and their willingness to do that, they can do it.
I didn't have anything. CPS had taken my children. I lost my home, my car, and everything we owned in storage. All my relationships with my family, so I was pretty much homeless. And I went into the CAP rehab program, and then I moved back to Selma. But as far as transitioning back with my kids, that was really slowed because I didn't have a safe place to take them. So as much as I didn't want to come to a transitional or whatever, someone referred me to Vicki, and so I called her, and I came here. And my son's very different, so they really opened their doors to something completely different with him, you know, with his habits and, you know, that he doesn't speak and that he has Down syndrome and he doesn't see well and he doesn't hear well. And my children were in separate foster homes, so this enabled us to all be together in the same place at the same time, you know, and to get where we could work with wisdom again. And my children had, their relationship was damaged because they were apart for like 16 months, you know, only seeing each other like for an hour every week. So it enabled my children to reestablish their relationship, you know. And that was some of the best times here, was to see them finally, to see her read to him, you know, or to see him reach out to her and to play with her or whatever. That those things were lost. I want to thank the Lighthouse and Vicki for accepting not just my daughter, you know, but my son was a huge responsibility, and it caused change for everybody in the house. You know, like nothing's normal with him, like meal times were not normal with him. When he came here, he would reach in people's plates and take their food and stuff it in his mouth, and, you know, and for the patience and the understanding, for knowing that it was going to take time with him, and for the relationships that I developed here, because, you know, I just don't trust other people, and I'm way introverted, you know, and it's very easy for me to be that way even today, you know, so it forced me to be outgoing even when I didn't want to be, you know. And for the Bible studies and stuff, because I do love God, and because I had a relationship with God at one time, and when I relapsed and I was angry at God over some sexual abuse issues with my daughter, you know, and it brought back all my old stuff, and so I turned my back on God, you know. I thought he shouldn't, of all the things, he should have known that was the one I couldn't stand up under, you know. And so when I'm coming back here, and I knew that God was the way to keep my sobriety, because I've never been able to do that by myself, you know. I have years and years of proving that, you know, so it was a Christian surrounding. And, you know, the more we started reading the Word, even if I wanted to resist or whatever, you know, God always spoke to me.